Dr. Tanner's on the mic, healing wounds unspoken. Trauma on the table, bandages broken open. Folks walking shattered, leave with hearts wide awoken. Transformed through the pain, from the dark to the golden. Dramatic makeover, she's guiding through the fire. With every word, lifting spirits higher. Changing lives, setting souls on wire. In her eyes, the strength to inspire. Broken hearts to mended, stories she untangles. Lives redefined, no more skewed angles. From shadows of the past to brightened dreams, Dr. Tanner lights the path, so it seems. Dramatic makeover, she's guiding through the fire. With every word, lifting spirits higher. Changing lives, setting souls on wire. In her eyes, the strength to inspire.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Traumatic Makeover TV. I'm your host, Dr. Andrea Tanner, and we're here again. Another week, we are here. We're here to educate, to empower. We're here to give you some knowledge and to share some stories. What is it about? It's about trauma. Trauma. A lot of times we don't want to hear that word because it haunts us, but this is about trauma. But at the same time, it's about how we overcome trauma, getting through trauma, knowledge about trauma, and just sharing these testimonies, educating about trauma. And so today I have a wonderful guest. You better stay tuned. You better make sure, just if you're driving, pull over. If you're cleaning, sit down on that couch. If you're in the tub, prop your phone up. Watch it, because I have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Franchelle Caesar, and I am looking to hear what she has to say, because what she has to say affects all of us. I guarantee you, it affects all of us. So Dr. Caesar is the founder of the Financial School for Spenders. That's an online program that teaches women how to save money without budgeting or changing their spending habits. Wow. Without budgeting? Come on now. My friends know that budget is not a good word, and I love this, and I'm so interested in what she has. But she's on a mission to transform the way spenders think about money, helping them achieve financial freedom without guilt or shame. Don't we need that? Of course we do. With a vision that every spender can trust themselves with money and build wealth on their trauma. Excuse me, I use the word trauma, but on their terms. Trauma is my middle name, y'all. Dr. Fran has created a unique program that combines life coaching and financial coaching. Side note, Dr. Caesar is a medical doctor. Yes, she is. She has her MD. She's been to medical school. But she retired at age 41 after eliminating over $600,000 worth of debt. Now, I know I have some people tuned in tonight because they want to know how she did that. I have been telling people about this $600,000 worth of debt she eliminated. They want to hear. Hide and watch. Pay attention. Over $600,000 worth of debt. She's a champion for women who want to take control of their finances while enjoying the freedom to spend as they choose. So, without further ado, Dr. Franchelle Caesar, welcome.
Hey, thank you. That was an amazing introduction. Like, I was over here like, oh, this is going to be lit. I want to watch it. It's me.
Yes.
Thank you
Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I love talking about this. I love sharing my story because I feel like it really gives other people permission
Uh-huh.
to, change their life also.
Well, I tell you what, again, this is something I have struggled with for many years. And to hear about the word budget with that line through it,
Hmm.
I am so this is just a godsend for me. And I know if it's for me, there are literally thousands or even millions of people that need to hear what you have to share. And so I did give you a bio, but is it anything I left out?
Just that, I believe that everything we go through is not for us, it's for others. And so there's been a lot that happened to me in my life that won't fit in a short little pretty little package of a bio. Um, our stories are what shape us and who we are today. So
Mhm.
I guess the only thing I would add to that is that I have these two tiny humans that are under my care. These two, I have 9-year-old twins, and they are really the motivation behind everything that I do and everything I have done.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's the only thing I left off of my bio is that I have these little humans, and they were the reasons that I decided to change my life.
Well, I tell you what, they are reasons to change our life.
Mhm.
They're reasons to get better, to make ourselves better, big humans, right?
Yeah.
And so I have a little question for you because I
Sure.
want to go on and get started here because we got
Yes. Let's
folks.
dive in.
What's keeping spenders from saving money?
Oh, so that's a good one. So you talk a lot about trauma. You said trauma is your middle name.
Mhm.
And for spenders, we have trauma from day one. And if you have people in your audience who identify as spenders, they'll recognize that that first allowance that you ever got, how long did you hold on to it? You got it, you got money, went straight to the store, got now and later's,
Mhm.
whatever, chili cheese Fritos, whatever it was, you spent that money right away. And so from that very first experience with money, you were already labeled as, money slips through your fingers, your money is burning a hole in your pocket.
Yeah.
And so you start out with that trauma very early that you're bad, quote unquote, with money. And so when you get to be in your late 30s, early 40s, and you see that, okay, I've been working all this time. Why don't I have more money saved? That's usually when people come to me because they're like, wait, what happened? I thought I was going to be a millionaire by now. Like, what happened? Where's my retirement savings? Right. And they've not set themselves up in a way that their money would be where they thought it would be because it wasn't intentional along the way. And spenders and savers think about money differently. And so because of that, um, the way that we process our spending in real time is really rooted in the messaging that we have, the old stories that we have about ourselves with money.
Okay.
There
Okay.
you are. Okay, you went away. So it's super distracting when I can't see you. So I was like, wait, where did she go? I didn't know what
Are
happened.
you there? Can you see
I
me?
know. I was like, are you there? I don't
No. Well, again, we want to spotlight you.
know. Okay.
I want them to see you.
I'll be talking to myself. I was
No,
like, where did she
no, you're talking to the people.
go? Okay.
You're talking, and you cannot see them, but I can guarantee you they can see you.
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
see you. Yes, yes, yes. Well, great. So, in the sense of that,
Hmm.
you're never going to budget.
No, so we budget a few times a year. So we budget Christmas and we budget birthdays and we budget that May, June season of like when everybody's graduating and everybody's getting married. And they're, you want to give gifts. So we budget around those strategic times, but we don't live on a budget. Does that
Okay.
make sense? You know how most of the time we're told that you have to live on a budget. You make a budget every single month, you live on that budget, and that's how you save your money. But when you think about it, budgets don't work for spenders because it's like setting up rules and these parameters for spending, which are fine, but it's hard to live like that when you are the underlying issue is not that you can't follow the rules. Underlying issues that you have all these other thoughts and feelings connected to why you're spending, and those rules don't address any of those thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
And so what I do with my members is that we just use the numbers from, they track their expenses, all their transactions. We use those numbers to be clues as to where we need to coach on. And that's basically where the trauma comes in, because all of your spending is a reason. There's always a reason for spending. I think the difference between what I do and what a lot of other financial coaches do is that we don't vilify any of the spending. I never tell people not to spend. I never tell them how much they should spend. We never talk about, that was a bad money mistake or money decision, whatever it was. There was always a reason, and we want to know what the reason was, because once you address the reason, we can heal it, and you don't have to budget because you'll not have, an appetite for that type of spending anymore.
Well, I tell you what. So there's a couple of things that you've said. First of all, you mentioned trauma, right? And I did say you were a medical doctor, but I need you to validate that for my viewers.
Okay. What do you want to know? So I'm an internal medicine doctor. I actually still do practice. I stopped practicing for about 5 years. Stopped during quarantine. My kids were small. I just kind of took care of them at home. But internal medicine, I worked as a hospitalist for about 14 years. I got burned out. I was burned out. And when the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break. It was a perfect time to just take a break, because that was a lot. There was a lot going on in the hospital in 2020. So I left in May. And just kind of, we were moving, and I just didn't get another job. And then I was online talking to people in my community about what I was doing. And it just turned into a coaching program. It really wasn't anything that was strategic or intentional. It was just people needed help, and I knew how to help them. And I had paid off all this debt, and everybody wanted to know why. And so that's kind of how it started. But yeah, I worked in the hospital for 14 years. I worked for Kelsey Siebel. I worked at Methodist Hospital, and that was life. And then I had my babies, and all of a sudden I was like, I want to be home with them. I want to be, full-time mom.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. So I'm hearing what you're saying, but just in the basics, how do you define a spender?
Yeah. So a spender is someone who, we have a different mindset about money. So spenders believe that more money is coming, always. Like, it's almost like there's an abundance mindset when it comes to spending. So what spenders are givers. They're always giving away money. They're optimistic. So the idea is always like, oh, I'm going to take the trip. It's a once in a lifetime thing. I'm going to take the trip because I know money's going to come. Right. And so there's always like this optimism about money. And savers, most of the financial education is geared towards savers. They tell you, you should only spend this much. You should save this amount, this percentage of your paycheck each month. And that comes easily to savers. Spenders are about 30 to 34% of the population. And so naturally, all of the education would go towards the majority of the population. And so spenders sometimes get left out of that conversation, because when they're learning about how to, save money or how to, grow wealth for the future, they start with budgeting. They start with all these things that don't resonate with spenders. And so we sometimes will just not be part of the conversation, or bury our head in the sand, because maybe we'll try to live on a budget, may work for 1 month or 2 months, but then it doesn't work. And then you stop, and then that damages your self-trust. And so there goes that trauma again. So, and there's a spectrum. So not all savers are healthy. Some savers have trauma as well, and they're saving and hoarding for their own reasons. I don't coach them because that's not my, that's not my niche. But I coach spenders, and there's a spectrum for spenders too. There's some evolved spenders, like the women who've been in my group, for over time. They're more evolved spenders. They don't have a lot of baggage around their spending, but
So,
there's
can I interrupt you for a
yes,
moment?
sure.
Are you describing 4 spenders you're talking? You had mentioned.
Yeah. So
Oh,
since 2020, we started the group in December of 2020.
mhm.
And last year, about the middle of the summer of 2024, it really started to like form this, very clear picture of like, oh my gosh, all the people that I've been coaching, they fall into one of these 4 categories, sometimes 2, but they have these spending patterns. And so we started calling them the toxic spending patterns. And it's not like emotional spending. You hear people say, "Oh, I'm an emotional spender. I'm a compulsive spender." Well, everybody is an emotional spender, right? We all spend. The only reason we buy something is because of emotions. We buy because of emotions, and then we justify it with logic.
Wow. I'm going to be taking some notes.
Please do. Yeah. And so I don't like to say emotional spender because that makes it seem like, people who are not spending are not emotional. No, we all buy for some sort of emotional reason. However, when you state that you have a goal, yet your spending is directly opposite of that goal, then your spending is toxic. And because we have 4 patterns that I've identified, we can say, okay, this is toxic spending. You're not a toxic person, but your spending is toxic because it's not aligned with your goal.
Okay.
So what we need to do is find out what's your pattern, and once we know that pattern, we're cooking with grease, because when we know that pattern, we know how to fix it.
That's good.
And the pattern is rooted in the trauma.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So toxic spending is rooted in trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I know people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we all know people like that. When we're talking about what type of trauma, it really doesn't matter because it impacts people different ways, and
Exactly.
they may spend. It's almost like um, how trauma impacts eating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a parallel.
Mm-hmm.
There is. And because sometimes money is so emotionally charged, because there's so much baggage there, and you've been told that you're bad with money so many times, it's like money will trigger you. We talk about food a lot. We'll talk about food, fitness, exercise, because it's a parallel. But if we tell that story, you get it. And then we transfer it to money, and it's like, oh, but it definitely is the same. It's the same overlap. And some of the patterns are the same as well. You can take the toxic spending patterns and make them toxic eating patterns or toxic fitness patterns. It's the same thing, is just showing up in a different way.
Yeah, and they're on 2 different equilibriums because with eating, you gain something.
Mm-hmm.
Spending, you're losing.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
you know, either they're both consequences we don't want,
Exactly.
but it's all impacted based on trauma.
Yep, it is.
So what other spenders? We got the toxic spender.
Yeah, no. Okay, so the toxic spender is 4 types of toxic spender.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 4 patterns for a toxic spender.
Mhm.
The first one is a winner. So this is someone, and these are all ways that you use money. It's
Mhm.
not like you spend money, because when you're spending money, you're exchanging, right? You're like, I'm gonna get this and I'm gonna get that. But when you have a toxic spending pattern, you're using money. So you're trying to create a feeling from exchanging it. So you're buying a feeling and not actually buying the thing. So, and I'll describe that when I tell you about the pattern. So, like, if you're a winner, you're trying to get a self-esteem boost. You're trying to feel good about yourself. And so you're trying to get this dopamine hit, and it lasts for, about a minute and a half. By the time you get to the car and start putting your bags in the car, it's gone. You put all those Target bags and you're like, why did I get all this stuff? But that feeling that you want to have.
Mhm.
And so usually what I see in my winners is they're trying to feel like they are somehow beating the system, or they're somehow coming up in some way. They're just trying to win. And what we see them do are using rewards points, or using their credit cards because they get the bonus points. They're doing something that's gamey. And these, retailers, they know that. So they've gamified shopping all over the place. So they make it, they send you the coupons in the mail and they expire on a certain date. Now you're taking your Kohl's cash, trying to get what you can get. And, maybe roaming around the store 2 and 3 times is really nothing that you want or need, but you got your Kohl's cash and you need it, you got to use them before they expire. And so those are my winners. And so when we see people who are doing that, we go to the heart of, why don't you feel like you are in control of your life to the point where you're worthy? And why do you need the self-esteem boost? Why do you need to feel like a winner? And we always find that root of it. And once you figure that out, we transfer the behavior to something that's healthy. Like I always tell the story because I have a client who, for the first time in her adult life, she filed her taxes on time. This was like 2 years ago. She filed her taxes on time and she felt so amazing. And that was the feeling of being a winner. She had never done that before. And she was instead doing these other things, other behaviors like buying stuff and returning it and all these other behaviors that would give her that temporary feeling of being a winner, but she needed something long lasting. And so we were, the way that I help people in the program is they stay up to date on their money. So by the time the end of the year comes or tax time comes, they have all their stuff together and they can give it to the accountant and everything is done, immediately, like February. They're not filing for an extension. So that was a new thing for her, is to have all her stuff ready and, done with her accountant early and not, filing for an extension. So she was really a winner in that sense, a long lasting, identity shift versus all of the cheap ones she was trying to get here and there. So that's one of the patterns.
Okay.
And then we have our seekers, and I'm a seeker. So I catch this behavior. And the good thing about knowing your pattern is that once you get it and you know it's you, your brain won't let you forget it. You'll be in the middle of doing that behavior and you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Let me get out of here, And so I'm a seeker. And with the seekers, what you're trying to do is you are constantly trying to pursue perfection. So it's rooted in this whatever traumatic thing happened. And like we were saying, your trauma doesn't have to be big. It can be something as simple as you being 7 years old, getting your first allowance and somebody telling you it burned a hole in your pocket. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I did something wrong, right? But when you're a seeker, you're always looking for the next best thing. So you may buy something and you're like, okay, this is good, but it's not quite perfect. Like, I think there's something better out there. So then you go out and and it's like this obsessive thing where you're keep out there, you're hunting, right? You're just trying to find that thing. And so my seekers will end up with a lot of duplicates. I remember I was moving and I had, back when we had DVDs, I had like 3 of the same DVD. And it was my favorite movie. And every single one of them was still in the cellophane. I had never opened it. And I was like, wow, this is a problem. You see it? I had one lady in my group who was going to go on a cruise and she needed a white tank top because there was like an all white party at one of the nights. And she kept going and kept going and kept going. And by the time the cruise came, she had 6 white tank tops. Because every time she was like, this is good, but I think, I want one that's a little more sheer, and just kept buying them. And it's just like obsessive, like and the thing is, when you get the thing, you're on to the next thing. And it can be something as small as a DVD, or it could be a house. It could be a car. And when I see my seekers doing that, I know I need to really focus in on having them like tell their brain that they're done. They found it. It's, thank you, brain. We did it. We found it. I remember after we moved into a house, because I had been driving around different neighborhoods looking for a house in the right neighborhood, we moved into a house and I still found myself driving around. And I was like, oh, I see what I'm doing. And so I had to say, we already found it. You did a good job. Thank you, brain. You can stop looking. Because we're in this cycle, in this loop.
Yeah.
And so those are my seekers, and they will keep spending until they're satisfied with, I have everything I need, which is somehow different than I don't need anything else. I don't need anything else doesn't scratch the itch like I have everything I need.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big difference. So that's a mantra that everybody needs to use.
Yeah.
Like, I have everything I need. And then there's runners. I think a lot of people are runners. Runners are people who are avoiding or distracting themselves away from, or somehow trying to, not have a negative emotion. They're
Mhm.
trying to avoid a confrontation, an argument, some kind of negative emotion, some kind of blow up. They're just trying to avoid it at all costs. So,
Okay.
in order to protect themselves, they're out shopping or scrolling on the phone, going on Amazon, buying something to avoid having this negative emotion. And it's really rooted in a fear of feeling their feelings.
Mhm.
And all of these are about feelings, but they have a fear of feeling their feelings. And so, um, what I help them do is to learn how to experience emotion safely and not be afraid of it. And my runners are the most powerful people that I can meet, because once you're not afraid to feel a feeling, you're invincible. You will do anything. If you're not afraid to be embarrassed, if you're not afraid to feel shame, I mean, you can imagine that. Like, if you're a speaker or even coming on a podcast like this, if
Mhm.
you're afraid of being embarrassed or afraid of feeling, any kind of feeling, then you'll hold yourself back. But if you're like, I can trip going up on stage, that's fine. I'm gonna get back up and keep talking. You're
Yeah.
not afraid of that. You're not afraid to try things.
Yes, yes.
And so my runners will spend money on things like, this is our famous example is Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is delicious. So yes, I get that. However, if you're going to Chick-fil-A like 15 times in 1 month, there's probably something we need to talk about. Like, something's going on, right? And so a lot of times it's like the mom has picky eaters. And
Mm.
so it's like just easier to drive through than to have this conversation about broccoli again, or to like have them eat something from home. Like, I'm tired. I just cannot adult today. I don't want to have this fight. Let's just go drive through. Right. Or maybe it's your partner and you're just like, I can't. So I'm gonna go shopping after work, and I'll come home a little later because I don't want to be there with him for 5 hours in the afternoon or whatever it is. So there's something that's going on there. And so we look at their finances and we're able to see, okay, what happened here? Right. And it was like, oh, that was the day that such and such. Okay, let's talk about that. Right. And it looks like we're healing it in that instance, but we're healing all of the times when that thought pattern is happening, and we're
Gotcha.
able to get that behavior turned around. So, my last pattern is protector. Protectors are a little complicated. My protectors, they have a lot of deep trauma. They may have capital T trauma. They have a lot of deep trauma. Usually, when I have a protector, depending on the severity of it, I'll have them have a therapist on board as well. A lot of my clients have therapists as well, because everybody needs a therapist. Everybody needs a life coach. They go hand in hand. Um, but with our protectors, this is someone who is spending because they are trying to sort of right a wrong that was done in childhood. Like, they're playing something out in their adult life, but it's like the thought is from something from childhood.
Mhm.
And an example of this is, I don't often coach men, but I've heard men say this a lot. Um, when they were growing up, their parents wouldn't buy them the Jordans, right? $100 for tennis shoes. We ain't buy you. What kind of money you think we got? We ain't buying you $100 tennis shoe. So now this man is 40 years old and he has 400 pairs of sneakers. He has all these shoes. And it's like, why do you have all the shoes? Well, when I was little, I couldn't have them. So now I bought them all. Right? They're trying to right a wrong, a perceived wrong. I shouldn't say it wrong, but it's a perceived wrong that they have from when they were growing up. Go
Me-
ahead.
I know people like that.
Mhm.
I know people like that. And a lot of times what I've heard is, like you said, not having when they were
Mhm.
younger. And I see a lot of times males may have a lot of food or may buy a lot. Where
Yeah.
the refrigerator and the freezer
Mhm.
out in the garage,
Yep.
all packed. Why?
Mhm.
Because as boys eat a lot, and if they
Mhm.
didn't have a lot now, no
Yeah,
can ever stop me from eating, and I can eat
exactly.
exactly what I want, when I want,
Yep,
and how I want. And then
exactly.
women may have a closet full of clothes with tags on it.
With
Because
tags on them.
I have some clothes in my,
Yeah.
they have tags on it.
Yeah.
And, because they are projecting when they're going to wear it next, and it may get lost in the next batch of clothes that are coming in. So I do people that with that issue too, but knowing that they're protectors.
They're protectors. Yeah. All of these things make sense. None of them are like a problem or, like bad. You're not bad with money. Like it all makes sense. Right. And we talk about the protectors. It's almost like a fear of missing out. And your brain tells you, like, what ain't gonna happen again. We never, ever, 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 ever gonna be in this situation again. And so it kind of like you overcompensate for that because of that fear. And yeah, it happens with food. It happens with, you see people, like you said, with all the canned goods in the garage, like all those things, because and there's an overlap between winning and protecting. Like extreme couponers come from, you're a winner, you got a coupon, like, oh, look, we're getting this great deal on all these paper towels. Let's get 50, rolls of paper towels because I never want to run out. So you got a winner and a protecting pattern that's overlapping. And in extreme cases with protectors, we see that hoarding behavior, right? Like I can't let anything go because what if I need it later?
Wow.
Right. And that's when I'm like, okay, we need a therapist because that's heavy. I still coach people who have hoarding behavior. I know a lot of life coaches are like, no, that's too extreme. But sometimes because I come from a very non-judgmental place, they will tell me before they tell anyone else. Because I never say you're a hoarder. I will never use that language. This person is a hoarder. No, the person is not a hoarder. The behavior has come from somewhere. It's a hoarding behavior in a perfectly sane person who is trying to protect themselves from something that happened. And they're like, this ain't happening again.
Yeah.
I'm keeping everything. I can't let anything go because Lord forbid. I had one person tell me that her cousin was out and she was dressed real nice and her shoe broke. And everybody's like, oh, girl, your shoe broke, and she felt so humiliated that now she just has so many pairs of shoes. She's like, that is never going to happen again where I'm ever in a position that I don't have what I need. And so that kind of that's a trauma, right? And so.
Well, yes, it is. And but what I was thinking is, as a client, I would probably ask her, are you going to carry a pair in your purse? Because if not, that other pair can't help you right now.
Exactly. And that shows you kind of the faulty thinking of it all, because you think that you'll need these things that you're protecting. But what often happens, you just buy it again. Like you buy the same thing again. You know what I mean? Like you're like, I need it and I'm just going to, and then you come home and you have like all these extras of it because you thought that you were doing something. Like I had another client who is so afraid of running out of feminine products that she has bought them and bought them and bought them. She has a storage bin with them all in there. But then when it comes time where she's going to restock, she forgets that she has the bin, right? Because the brain is not doing that. The brain is not making a logical connection and saying, because there's a difference between I'm storing something I have extra versus I'm putting this away because what if there's this constant fear. That's different. So if she was storing it to have extra, like I have like extra things of toothpaste. So when I run out of toothpaste, I'm like, oh, let me go where I got my extra. But if I'm storing it because it's out of fear, when I see more, I'm going to buy it, not remembering that I have like a whole, And so it's a different situation that happens. And so we have to get to the bottom of it. And because I'm a life coach, I don't go into all the things that happened in your childhood. Sometimes I'll ask you to, that's you. That's right. Exactly. That's why I always have, I know, therapists that I trust. I'm always looking for therapists that I can trust because I have so many different kinds of clients. I want to make sure I can match them with somebody who, they feel like they can trust, because we don't go deep.
What investment is all about, though, on both ends, being invested in changing and also be invested in your client to make sure that they have a continuum of care, that they're going to be successful and thrive.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can't do this by ourselves.
So right now, these are four: the winner, the seeker, the runners, and the protectors. I need to identify where I am in all of that. So
Yeah.
I am listening. I am listening. It's some good information that you're sharing with
Mhm.
us.
Thank you.
So I do have another question for you.
Sure.
Because I'm thinking about this, and so we're talking about these spenders. But
Mhm.
what about spenders and savers in relationships?
Mhm. So spenders and savers in relationships can be a beautiful thing. It can be a beautiful thing, especially when that spender is working on themselves,
Mhm,
because that saver ends up being your safety net. You know, you have somebody who is diligently putting the money away for later,
mhm,
and who put, you know, you got a little bumper so that you don't completely spend it all and now you found yourself in a bad position. You have somebody who's a safety net. However, there can be tension and there can be, you know, there's problems because the saver is like, hey, we got goals. You know, we trying to get to Disney this summer and you've spent the money again, you know, and that is a constant thing. And when, you know, for people before they come into the financial school for spenders, those conversations that are supposed to just be money conversations will break down into arguments. You know, somebody's going to shut down. It's usually the spender shuts down because it's not an argument with their partner in a loving conversation. It's all the trauma that they had from growing up, from that first pack of now laters all the way up their whole life being told they're bad with money. So if their partner says, hey, you know, we're trying to get to Disney, all of a sudden they hear you're terrible with money, you're messing up the relationship, he's not going to want you anymore, like all these things. And
mhm,
so what we will typically have is I'll help the spender in the way that they're thinking about money and the way that they're thinking about, you know, saving and their history and their money story, and in a very short period of time, they're able to communicate with their partner in a totally different way without getting triggered, without it turning into an argument. And they're actually able to contribute to the family's goals
mhm.
because their spending has changed, their spending habits have changed. And then I have, so I always say I only coach spenders, but I have someone in my group who is a saver, and she came to hang out with us just because she loves us. Like it's a really nurturing group. It really, really is. And so she rocks, she's been rocking with us for over 2 years because it's such a beautiful community. But she's a saver and her husband's a spender. And so when she first came to us, she came because we were just cool, you know, cool girls. She met us in another group and it's like they're just so cool. But she stayed because she was hearing like, oh, that's what he's thinking. Oh, that's what's happening. Oh, this is how I should talk to him or not talk to him. This is how I should react. And I do some one-on-one coaching with the people in my group. And so we would have one-on-one conversations and she would be asking me, what do I do? Like he did this. What do I do about that?
Mhm.
And I would give her counsel on, okay, this is how you handle it. Like, absolutely do not like vilify him, blame him. Don't say it was a bad decision. None of that. Right. And so now after, like I said, 2+ years, he came to her at the end of last year and he was ready to sit down and look at the money. He
Right.
wanted to see, and because she had been keeping track, because even though she hates the tracking, like savers hate my process, it does not work with their brain. But she was doing the process because eventually she wanted to be able to help him do it. So
Mhm.
he came and she had been doing the process for 2 years. So she was able to sit down with him. He saw it, he got all excited. Oh, yeah, we can do that. Da, da, da. And so now he's in it with her. And every Sunday they sit down together and they look at the money and nobody has an argument. And it's so beautiful and their relationship is mended. And she never has to tell him about the credit card bill or what he spent or anything like that because he can see it.
Yeah.
And so he's now going through, he's in the wilderness, right? We get into the wilderness because he's now seeing, he's like, oh, oh, we didn't, oh, I thought we had more. It's like, and she was like, what should I do? He came in, he was so upset. He thought, you know, and I said, no, let him have his process. He's just seeing now what you've been seeing. All the things that you've been saying, like you spend too much on this, you spend too much. He's seeing it now for himself. Let him process that. And so it helps people who are even, you know, not the spender in a relationship, but they can understand.
And so that was the so as far as you're talking about spenders,
Mhm.
what we were hearing is that more of him understanding or transitioning in how to manage better.
Yeah, so he's at the stage where he is just looking at the money for the first time.
Mhm.
So these are professional people, right? These are six figures and above. They're making money. And so when you're it's and that's how I was too. I'm like, I work hard, I'm gonna buy what I want. When you're working hard and you want to buy what you want, when you look at the cold hard numbers, it's like, oh, actually, you got the nice house, you both got a car, you got loans, student loans, there's not as much money as you feel like there is.
Mhm.
And so you have to pick. We call them trade-offs. You got to make a trade-off. You can have, I love this quote. This is by Paula Pant. And she says, you can have anything, you just can't have everything.
Wow. Now let's kind of pause there, because
Mhm.
I think we had a side note a few days ago, and I was telling you about growing up, and when you don't have much,
Mhm.
the whole goal was to get educated, to get a good job, so you can buy everything and anything you wanted when you want it,
Yeah.
and a budget was not required.
Right.
I am hearing you say something
Mhm.
that's stimulating me,
Yeah.
because for those people who, for the most part, are working or are setting goals for themselves only
Mhm.
to supply their every need,
Mhm.
what do you have to say to them? And for the most part, I don't know if you was able to pick out, like, which one am I, and I'm okay with that, because I'm on this journey as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's the interesting thing. And that was like sort of where I started when I was in my journey is what is the reason? Right? What is the reason? And when you look at your finances, and this is sometimes when people don't automatically know off the top of their head,
Mhm.
because some people come to me and they're very triggered about everything. They're super anxious. They're talking real fast. You see those people who are just like, they'll come like that. And I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put all your transactions just for the previous month, and we're going to look at them line by line. And that'll pull out. Those are the clues to what's happening. And so when you look at those, you find out, okay, what is the reason? Because you think that you went to school so you can buy whatever you want. And it sounds like it makes sense in your head.
It sure
But
does.
it does, right? But when you really look at it, I'll tell you, I'll use myself as an example. I had a 5-bedroom house,
Mhm.
okay? And I drove a cute little BMW. I had 2 dogs and I was not married. Why did I have a 5-bedroom house? Right? These are the things that we don't stop to think about it, because those thoughts, I love this phrase, they live rent free in your head.
Mhm.
Those thoughts that live rent free in your head are making financial decisions for you that go against who you are. I
Mm.
lived in that house for years. I had no idea until I started doing this work, and not the work, but like the work on myself, the personal development work. And I realized somewhere along the lines, a long time ago, I heard J Lo, of all people.
Mhm.
It was probably on like MTV Cribs or something like that. And she was
Mhm.
walking through her house and she said, if anything ever happens, my whole family can come live here. And that's why she bought this big mini McMansion. Of course, now we know that some of this stuff be fake, but she was talking about the cribs and how it had all these bedrooms, and her mom and everybody from Mexico, like everybody could come live there if need be. And I had internalized that. And I was the first one in my family, the oldest grandchild, and I was the first one to go to college, the first one to finish college. And then I had gone on to medical school. And so as the eldest daughter and the oldest grandchild and all this stuff, there's all this responsibility I had put on myself, what probably was put on me, but I had taken it and carried it like I have to be the one to make sure everybody's okay. So I bought this big house because just in case
Mhm.
all these people needed to come live, we had enough space. Everybody had their own place, you know, but I had this thought and it lived rent free in my head, and I had a mortgage and I had all this stuff, and that was my thought. And it wasn't until I really started doing this work and I said, is this what you want? Is this who you are? And
Mhm.
I can tell you, 20 years later or whatever it is, I like a tiny little cottage. I could live in a studio apartment. I could. We have a king size bed and my babies sleep with me. Like we we don't need that much space and don't want that much space. And so now when I'm looking back on it, it feels like I was a whole different world because my thought process was so different from who I actually am authentically. But I had to strip off those layers of
Yeah.
expectation I had put on myself to say, what do you want?
Mm.
So
Wow.
does that make sense? So like when you see people who they make a lot of money and they feel like it's never enough, it's because there's something there that they're buying. It's not really who they are. Like, you have a big shoe collection. Is it because you really like the shoes, or you feel like every time you step out, people are looking at you and you better have on something cute on your feet? Right? Is it really who you are, or is it the expectation?
Well, you're talking to us. You are really talking to us. And we have to really take a look inside and say, why do I do this?
Yeah.
Why do I spend the way I do? And
Mhm.
even on the flip side, even though we're talking about spenders, why do I save the way I,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because there are some spenders that are very miserable because they are married to savers.
Yes.
Savers don't want to live life.
Right.
It's almost like they're going to take the money with them in the coffin.
Yes.
So,
There's fear. There's so much fear there of
exactly.
running out. And it can happen. So a lot of times we think with spenders, there was lack or poverty in their history, and now
Mhm.
they're spending to make up for it. But you could come from a wealthy family. I had one lady, she came from, her family was well off. They had come from the islands and they lived in New York, and they had, help at home and things like that. So when she grew up and had her own, and she has two kids, that mentality was still there, that like you can still, and she was spending like she was a two income household and they had extra help and all this stuff. And it was like, no, that's not your reality, so it can go either way. But yeah, it runs deep and it's very personal, and it's personal for everyone. But yeah, you can completely heal it once you recognize it.
So, in short, spenders are out there listening to you right now because we're live.
Hmm.
But at the same time, what do you want to say to them? And in that,
Hmm.
if they want to reach out to you, tell them how they can get in contact with you.
Okay. Yes. So I would love to let spenders know that there is more than one way to be good with money. You do not have to budget to be good with money. You don't have to stop spending. You don't have to do no buy July, or whatever they do. We don't do any of those things because that's not getting to the root of the issue.
That's true.
Changing your life is not difficult and it does not take a long time. So it doesn't matter if you're in your 50s and you haven't started saving for retirement. We didn't really talk about my debt story, but I paid off all my debt in 1 year doing this process. It had nothing to do so much with the numbers. It was more of me changing my mindset, knowing what my priorities were.
Well, we have time to hear that.
But yeah, but it really is all about, it can go faster than you think. So a lot of people are worried that like it's too late for me, or I'll never be able to, especially moms. I hear a lot of moms who are saying like, I'm gonna die with all this debt, those kinds of things. And it's like, no, you can turn this around very quickly.
And how much
um
did you turn around in 1 year?
I turned mine around in 1 year because
How much?
oh yes, I had $624,000 worth of
Okay.
debt. And I'll tell you, because people always want to know what kind of debt, how did you do all this? I had credit cards, I had an IRS bill, I had a personal loan, I had student loans. This was my husband's debt too, so we both had student loans. We had two cars, we had two mortgages. What else? Any kind of debt, you name it, I had it. Because I was a doctor, they just keep giving you credit. They let you get stuff on time. And I was a doctor, and I never thought that I wouldn't be a doctor. I loved, I was practicing in the hospital. I didn't have the kids at the time, and I'm a workaholic. I'm still a workaholic. I like to work. I really do. And I told you about my recess story. Like, I like to work. And so I just bought things on time. I didn't have people in my family who were like debt free. Everybody was like buying things on time. And even when I started paying off my debt, I had a lot of resistance. People were like, why are you trying to do that? You just keep paying your mortgage for, forever. And I was like, no, I heard somebody on a podcast say you can be debt free. I'm going to try that, and it was completely liberating. But yeah, so I had all this different kinds of debt and I had everything set to auto pay. Set it, forget it. I never opened bills. I didn't look at things. I was like, nope, right? I don't open the mail. A lot of spenders don't open the mail. They put it in a drawer. So yeah, we handle all that stuff. We help you with all of that stuff because it's all tied to the same thoughts. So what happened was I had gotten a new car and I'm the set it and forget it person. And 3 months had passed because they let you, had a 3-month grace period or whatever. When you buy a new car, you don't have to pay for 3 months. And or a month or whatever it was. But the lady called me, she said, oh, your car payment's past due. And I'm like, no, it's not me. I always got my stuff paid. So I ended up looking to see like if the car payment had been paid because I just knew she was wrong. And it hadn't been paid because I hadn't set up the auto payment because it was a new car. I hadn't set that up yet. So in looking at that, I saw other stuff that made me dig further. And I'm like, what is this? Just saw all these. What are these bills? Oh, clutch my pearls. What's happening in the finances? That led me down the deepest rabbit hole. I started looking at everything. It was like I wanted to know everything. I've changed my passwords to all my stuff so I could log into all my different accounts. Because another thing that spenders do is we hide money from ourselves because we're like, I'm going to start fresh and I'm going to get this new account and I'm going to put the money, because we think, we're always trying to find a solution for the problem and we think it's something out there that we need to do. Here's stuff online. Oh, I'm going to do that. And then you have an account over here. You forget about that account because, backslid and now you're doing the same thing again. And so I'm going to do this. And then so we have to start by gathering all the gems. We have to find where all your accounts are, where's all the money. Let's reset all the passwords and let's start, put everything in one place. And that's pretty much what I did. Put everything in one place in front of me. And I love puzzles. And I was like, okay, this is a puzzle. How would I solve this? In the first couple months, I tried to do Dave Ramsey. And I was miserable. I was crying. And my kids were really small. They were like 2. And I was like, I do not want my kids to remember this time of our life as me crying myself to sleep because of money, because I was happy before when I didn't know, it was like ignorance is bliss. But now that I know, I was crying. So I was like, okay, we're not going to do Dave Ramsey. I can't live on a budget. That felt miserable. Because, beans and rice and beans, we weren't going to do that. So I said, okay, if I was going to solve this problem just as a puzzle, what would I do? So that's the process that I created. And that's what I teach my members inside the Financial School for Spenders. And it's so simple. It's sustainable. If you fall off the wagon, you can get right back up. There's no shame. There's no guilt. We don't judge. And we use the numbers to trigger the thoughts. We look at the numbers. Tell me the context around what happened here. And that's when we can identify what's happening. And I remember when I first started doing it, I had this hour-long commute. And I would always, it was one particular Burger King. I would always stop at that Burger King. And I remember after I started doing this process where I was looking at my money and telling a story around what was happening, I went to that Burger King and I ordered. And then I just drove on through. I told the lady at the window, I said, never mind. Because I could feel, it was like, I didn't want it anymore because I knew what was behind it and I didn't want it. I didn't need it. I had healed it. I had shined the light on it and I didn't need it anymore. And I remember that was a pivotal moment. I said, wow, I don't need it anymore. And so little by little, that started happening with everything. So a couple things that happened, because those were big, that was big debt. And I'm talking about Burger King. So I know people are like, hey, you didn't skip Burger King every day and then pay off $600K. No. But it started with Burger King. And the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So the thought that I had about Burger King, I also had about buying another house and buying another car and buying all the clothes, like all the things. And my thought, because I help people identify what their thought is. Mm-hmm. My particular thought is, this is just small. It doesn't count. It doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. And people do that with food too, right? Oh, it's just a little piece of the brownie. It doesn't matter. This is one slice of cake. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But over time, it matters.
Yeah.
So I had that thought. And that thought ended up opening a can of worms for everything. So two things that happen. One is that you identify that thought that's driving all your behavior. So you're able to kind of, when you see it, you can't unsee it. And the other thing that happens is your nervous system relaxes. When you start to look at your money regularly, your brain, it's almost like you make it into a habit, and your brain starts to expect that you're going to be looking at your money. So your nervous system relaxes, and you're able to remember things that have been hidden by your chaotic life. And so what I'm telling people now these days is that part of what we do is we help people create this better work-life balance. And it's just because your life is chaotic, because you're just overwhelmed by the fast and the pace of the day to day. But when you start having coaching and you start to look at your money and you can see where things are, you calm that life down. You have like more of a holistic picture. Okay, this is all what's happening. And then you start eliminating things that are not aligned with who you are and who you think that you're going to be. Right. And so now you have this calm, we call it a simple, happy life. You have a simple, happy home and a simple, happy life because you've eliminated things and you're not putting out fires. You're more proactive. And so it calms you down. And then when I was calmed down, I had a plan for paying off my debt, which is we create the plan on the first day. You create your plan, your body calms down, then you can start remembering where you hid money from yourself. And you find so much money. I was on a call with the lady. We found $4,000 in 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It was incredible. It can have, y'all think you don't have money. You can find money. She was like, you know what? I wonder if, went into the thing. We had a share screen going, change her password, did all thing. Boom. Here's some, brokerage account or something she had opened randomly thinking, okay, here's the next big thing, and put some money in. It had just been growing.
Wow.
And so we took that money, applied it to debt. So there's money hidden, but because we're so amped up all the time and so on edge, we have all these stories that we're broken. We don't know what we're doing with money. We don't realize what's available to us. So that it was just miracles. I was having just miracle after miracle after miracle that happened. And then within, that year, I had paid off all that debt. It was crazy.
Well, awesome. How can they get in contact with you?
Yes. So I hope I'm easy to find. I think I'm easy to find. So if you go to financialschoolforspenders.com, you can take the quiz. It's a quick 5-question quiz that'll tell you what your toxic spending pattern is. And that sends me an email when you do that, and I'll reach out to you and see if you need any additional help from that. We do workshops once a month. Our next workshop is March 18th. And in that workshop, you can get more information. And it's not like a webinar where we can't interact. It's a Zoom call, and it's absolutely interactive. And so I love to, meet people and hear their stories and see how I can help you. You will get a transformation on that call, just from kind of going through the exercises that we do. And then we take it from there. The membership is a lot of fun. It's a safe space to, take off the armor from the world and tell the truth about your money and change your life.
So are you meeting in person or virtually?
Virtually.
Okay.
Yes. We have people in the UK, Italy, Spain, the Bahamas, California, Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, wow. Thank you so very much.
Thank you
for joining me tonight. It has been such I'm going to say a blessing, because my first homework is to find out which one of these am I.
Yeah.
And what needs to be taken care of. But I will say out there, if anybody is, I did that protector. I'm sure that resonated with a lot of people. And we really need not only to get our spending habits taken care of, we need to understand why we're protectors in that spending, because in a sense, it becomes a way of that we self-sabotage and we can't make it to the next level. And it is really, really designed for us to do some great things. Yeah. So, Dr. Franchelle Caesar, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Tanner.
Again, it's the financialschoolforspenders.com, or is
Yes.
it financialschoolforspenders.com?
It's financialschoolforspenders.com.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, and you're in Houston, correct?
I'm in Katy.
In
Yes.
Katy, Texas.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So thank you again.
Thank you.
And wow. We'll be
Yeah.
talking to you soon.
Yes. Thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for this platform because it's going to help so many people.
Thank you. We may have to have you back because
I talk too much because I don't stop talking.
no, it's necessary. It is necessary because this is an area, especially in our community, in our culture. We didn't get lessons for the most part.
Yeah.
Get lessons on how to spend money, how to manage money,
How to manage money.
what do
Yeah.
we need to do,
Yeah.
and we get it, and we use it in a way like we have so much. And I know you had said up front, when you spend, you think more money is going to come. So those are some things. So we're going to have you back soon.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
You're
Thanks everybody for watching.
Dr. Tanner's on the mic, healing wounds unspoken. Trauma on the table, bandages broken open. Folks walking shattered, leave with hearts wide awoken. Transform through the pain, from the dark to the golden. Traumatic makeover, she's guiding through the fire. With every word, lifting spirits higher. Changing lives, setting souls on wire. In her eyes, the strength to inspire. Broken hearts to mended, stories she untangles. Lives redefined, no more skewed angles. From shadows of the past to brightened dreams, Dr. Tanner lights the path, so it seems. Dramatic makeover, she's guiding through the fire. With every word, lifting spirits higher.